Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fascinating testimony. I want to thank everyone for being here as witnesses. I represent 36th District in Texas, which contains the highest concentration of chemical plants and oil refineries of any one district in the entire country. So when the federal government issues carbon regulations based on questionable data and methods, this is of great concern to me because they have a direct and significant impact on my constituents. And Dr. Dayaratna, putting things into perspective from the Industrial Revolution, what association do you see between carbon dioxide emissions and the health of our economy? And along with what some of you folks have already said, obviously it's going to be a drag, but I'd like to hear you elaborate a little bit more on that.
Okay, well, no, that's a very good question, Congressman. So here's the thing, and a lot of people take for granted that energy is a fundamental building block of civilization. So whether it's, powering this room, lighting up our homes, powering our cars, and so forth, we all depend on energy. So when we think about, this whole concept of SCC, the whole goal is to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, and what we end up doing is moving away from the least expensive and most efficient forms of electricity to more expensive and less efficient forms. So, and the bottom line is, economically, what we'll notice is that when we go to these so-called lower carbon emitting, forms of energy, what we would notice is a dramatic change to the economy in the long run. A carbon tax, as I was talking about in my testimony, would, in conjunction with the SCC, would result in around 400,000 lost jobs on average by 2035, 13 to 20% increase in electricity prices, and a $2.5 trillion loss in GDP. Now, on the other hand, and I've also researched this question, if we were to take advantage of the vast shale oil and gas we have in this country, we'd actually see the exact opposite. In fact, even more so in the other direction. We would see a $3.7 trillion increase in GDP. Personal income would skyrocket.
Absolutely.
And, all sorts of things that would benefit the economy.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that testimony. And Dr. Michaels, it's interesting to hear you put a historic and prehistoric context into all this.
I've lived that long.
Well, as a student of history, I've read some of the Norse settlements coming from Norway over to Iceland and on to Greenland, and they had settlements there, I think, from the year 1000, and had trade and regular routine ships calling on them from Europe for a couple to 300 years. And they were in the process of raising livestock, had hay crops. And then, strangely, it had been over 150 years when a ship called on them in the 1500s. None of that community was left. And by that time, the climate had cooled off considerably. The hay crops were no longer there. The folks had disappeared. So I don't think there was a huge amount of industrialism, carbon dioxide being released into the earth from humans during those centuries. So if you can kind of address that as well, along with some of the other gems.
Well, the nature of climate is to change.
Right.
It is because we are not a uniform Earth. We do not have a circular orbit. The sun varies, and the infrared absorption of the atmosphere varies, sometimes with human activities. What did I say? It's complicated, Congressman. And the problem is, in the illustration that I showed, comparing the satellite and weather balloon observations to the average of the United Nations 107 computer models shows that it's so complicated that we haven't gotten close to getting it right. And why would you base a policy upon something that is so blatantly wrong?
Thank you so very much. And the American people deserve to know the truth here and have sound scientific data, and that's what this hearing is all about. I want to thank everybody again for being here, and I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.